Hi, I'm Steve Mohammed,
And I'm Cecile Mohammed.
and we serve right now as the team leaders for Latin America and the Caribbean in the area of leadership development and human resources. But
We also serve from Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm originally from the Philippines, but I've been in Trinidad and Tobago serving with my husband for the last 24 years now.
and we've been on staff actually for 30 years. We actually just celebrated our 30th year on staff. Very often people ask us how the movement got started in Trinidad. I heard a story recently that gave me an additional insight into how the movement started. Um, Dean Beale actually came and was part of a leadership training institute for a number of churches in Trinidad. That was the initial exposure to Campus Crusade. But the first impact of the movement was through the Here's Life campaign, when a gentleman by the name of John Rose came from Venezuela and made a trip actually through Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname. And out of that, the ministry actually got started. The person who was then challenged directly by Bill Bright to be able to be part of the movement was Keith Joe. He was a Trinidadian living in New York and involved in the ministry there, and the Lord used Keith Joe, to come to Trinidad and be able to start the movement. And that's when I got involved. For a year, Keith actually pastored the same church I attended, and that was my first exposure to Campus Crusade.
Yes. And I believe after Keith Joe, they had challenged Rafiq and Irene Ali to lead the movement I think they were national directors for about 13 years. Yes.
And that's when, we got involved in 1985. I got involved in Trinidad in 1985.
And I joined staff in 1985 in the Philippines.
And later, through Manila in New Life 2000, which was held in Manila in 1990, that's when Cecil and I, we were in the process of getting to know each other better, and we got married a year later, actually.
Yes, we actually met when Steve was in Manila for our staff training for almost a year, and got to know each other. It took about 4 years before we decided that, and before we were sure that God was really calling us to marriage together. And it was an exciting, big step for me, thinking of leaving my family and everything that's familiar to me to come to Trinidad, where I had never gone before. Didn't hear much about Trinidad before I met Steve. But when people ask me, how sure are you that you should go all the way there, a country that you've never been to before? I just told her that I'm sure that the Lord led me to marry Steve, and therefore I could follow Steve anywhere. And I know in our ministry, in different parts of the ministry all over the world, there might be some of you who might be facing this same decision. And I just want to encourage you that once you're sure that God wants you to go somewhere, He will take care of you. And by His grace, He will sustain you. And right now, I consider myself a Trinipino, because I am as much a Trinidadian or Trinbagonian, which is the proper thing to say, as I am a Filipino, I think.
I think what impacted me was being involved at the university. A young lady who actually came originally from Suriname, studied in the US, came back. Her name is Aida, and she started the movement in Trinidad.
On campus?
I was on the campus. I was a student in my final year, and the Lord used that because I was the only male person involved. There was no male staff, and out of that, we saw tremendous things happen in that first year. And the Lord used that to confirm in my own heart to join staff full time. I came from a petroleum engineering background. I was quite a change. But over the years, I've seen how God has used even those skills to help me in what I'm doing today. We started initially on the campus. Before that, actually, Expo 85 was our catalyst, not just for Trinidad, but throughout the region, because we had about 500 plus people who came into Trinidad for Expo 85.
Yeah.
And that proved to be an initial catalyst for the movement. But then we chose to focus on the campus. And from 1985, we really developed our work there. And out of that grew the initiative to the other Caribbean countries to initially to Guyana, and then Suriname, and for what we're seeing God doing all around the Caribbean.
Talking about Explo 85, the Lord actually confirmed His call in my life at Explo. I had wanted to join staff, and my parents said, they didn't want me to join, but they said, you can work first for a year, and then if you still want to join staff after that, we will let you. Well, at least my dad said that. My mother was just crying all the time. But I did take them up on the challenge, and I said I got a job in my field because I did mathematics in university and minor in computer science, and so I got a job in the computer department. So my dad said, where? With Campus Crusade for Christ. They're hiring me to work for Explo. So I worked with Explo, and that was such an amazing experience for me. That year, actually, in the Philippines, we had the largest batch of new staff, the joint staff that year. There was 25 of us that joined staff in that 1 year. And so coming here, it was amazing to see what a big role Explo 85 had on both of our lives. And it was exciting to be part of the campus ministry. And eventually, we were challenged to be team leaders for Trinidad and Tobago. And well, I'll let Steve talk about that a little bit.
In the early days of the movement, I think our greatest challenge was that people did not go to university and then go into full-time ministry. If you wanted to go into full-time ministry, you went to a theological school or something like that. And so this idea of raising financial support proved to be a big challenge. But we've seen over the years how God has opened the doors and has been faithful in providing for our staff. The early years were challenging, but I've never seen a time when I could not pay my bills. The Lord was always faithful in helping me meet those commitments. And over the years, our staff, all those who've come on, we've seen God raise up their financial support, and the partners who have come on alongside them really become very faithful to them. To the point where we were actually able to send out missionaries from Trinidad to support them in countries like Brazil, which required much more support than they would have needed in Trinidad. So again, we saw how God helped us to meet those challenges head on. I think our greatest challenge we still face is, overcoming the barrier for men to be involved in ministry. Because many people, many men don't see this idea of going out and developing financial support as something which is viable for them. But we are beginning to see it happen throughout the Caribbean. I want to challenge you, if you really want to make your life count for God, it can count in any field. But be sure that you are committing your life to the Lord. Because when I first came on staff, I thought I'd be here for 2 years. 30 years later, I'm still enjoying a walk with the Lord, growing in faith with Him, and seeing Him do just amazing things, both in our lives and in the lives of our children. We have 2 girls who've grown up in the ministry, and a lot of their development has come by just coming alongside us and being with us.
They've met the most amazing people.
Yeah,
and being on staff.
Ministry. And I think one of the best ways I developed was being involved with Campus Crusade and growing in my own leadership skills and my people skills. And this is a challenge to you to prayerfully consider where God wants you to be. And maybe Campus Crusade is one of those areas for you to consider.
I also cannot believe right now that we've been in ministry 30 years. Because when I started, I kept saying, if Steve said 2 years, I said 1 year at a time. But as each year rolled around, God just did amazing things in my life that I didn't even have to stop and consider it very much if I was going to continue another year. I just kept going. Things were so exciting. And I saw God use all the things, the giftings that He's given me. At first, I didn't even know what my real giftings were, except that I liked to work with computers. I love numbers. And I did get to use that as head of the computer department in the Philippines for a couple years, which really stretched me, helped me to realize that I needed some people skills. But that also came along as I grew on staff, and I was given challenges that I thought I couldn't handle at first, but I was really stretched. And I was able to use those skills in computing and systems design in Trinidad as well when I came to Trinidad. And I had the privilege of helping computerize the accounting system, the donation system of Trinidad. And now we have raised up some young staff who have joined and continue to use their gifts in that area. One very special ministry that the Lord led us to begin in Trinidad was Family Life, which is really a branch of our Family Life International organization. As we ourselves began to grow our family, we have two daughters. Megan is now 20 and Andrea is 17. When we first had our babies, we were still on campus. And then after a while, we realized that we wanted to get involved in helping couples really enjoy their lives together, to have not just a just married situation, but feeling like just married. You know, when you have this sign on the back of a car, when you first get married, that marriage will be fresh and that marriage will keep improving through the years. When we got married, we decided that we wanted to be together because we believed that God could do so much more with us living our lives together than individually. And we've seen how God has done that through the years. And we've been so grateful for the help in parenting, for the help in every year when we speak at marriage conferences, we are more helped, I think, than even the participants, because it pushes us to continue working on areas of our lives, because every year there are different challenges, there are different adjustments to make for each stage of your life. And we've been very grateful for that. And we've seen God raise up a movement in family life in Trinidad and Tobago, so much so that now we have a couple who has joined staff. They were in business before, they were gifted in graphic arts, and they have now joined staff because their own marriage was transformed through a family life marriage conference, and continuing work in small groups, the couples support groups, which we call home builders, which I think is now, it has another name now, but this is a group of about 7 or 8 couples who meet once a week for 7 weeks, and they study how to deepen their relationship, and they go through things like communication, how to resolve conflict, how to manage your finances, even parenting, so that now that we've seen that movement, we have allowed Russell and Joel are now leading that ministry very, very successfully, and taking it to a new level. So
I think that's a wonderful thing that Campus Crusade has done as a global movement. We're able to draw upon the resources of family life, materials for professionals that we've used, materials for church movement in the global church movement area. And so, you know, it's not just in one area, but you can find resources for almost any area of life or ministry that you want to be involved in. In Trinidad and in the Caribbean, we are primarily focused on our ministries on campus, family life, church movement.
yes.
But there are other areas, for example, working with the professionals. So you can find a nation, any one of these areas that you want to be involved in.